Well, the haters gonna hate, 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 and the faker's gonna fake, 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 baby. I'm just gonna make, making luck, a Dominion podcast.
Well, welcome to Making Duck, a Dominion podquack.
All right, you got that out of your system.
Oh, I feel so good.
Okay. All right. So, welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast. I'm Adam. Oh, what? No, I'm Wandering No. I'm Jake.
Welcome to the Jake Schwartz podcast.
Oh.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Welcome. Hi. Welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast. I'm Jake, and I'm joined as always in Adam's basement by the guy who owns this house. Hi, Adam.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Yeah. I'm glad that you got out of work.
Yeah.
I'm also glad that I got out of work.
Yeah, I'm just glad anytime I get to leave work.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but, I just feel like, coming up to today and even coming into the future, just every day it's less and less likely that I'm going to be able to leave. I'm just going to live there now. Bring in a cot.
Well, it is less and less likely each given day that you won't be dead, just because you're older.
Statistically speaking, yeah.
Yeah, so...
Also because they locked me in a room all by myself, and as of the end of this... Anyway, I don't want to talk about that on the podcast.
Well,
if the podcast is suddenly gone, or if it's just episodes of Jake and Wandering Winder and the production quality has gone down, and I don't know how you're going to get access to the RSS. Well, I'm sure you can figure out that password.
I'll Google
it's easy
it.
to guess, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. Anyway, don't Google the password to the RSS feed. You might find it. It's funny. You actually might. In any case, thanks for listening to the podcast. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I'm really happy that you're actually listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, we enjoy getting feedback from you about the podcast, but I definitely enjoy the feedback we get from the people who have actually listened to the podcast.
Yeah, those are...
More than if,
Yeah, we get plenty of feedback from other people, too, which is interesting. But we really appreciate the feedback we get from the people who have listened to the podcast. So, shout out.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
If this is your first episode, this is a podcast about a card game.
Yeah, and the card game is mostly Dominion. It's all Dominion, really.
Yeah, actually, it kind of is.
Yeah.
If you don't know that game,
yep,
you should maybe watch the video tutorial series or figure out how to... You may not understand what we're saying. Anyway, we talked about a card last time.
Yeah, last episode was about Vampire, and so we're going to recap with the Kingdom that we played. Over this last week, it had Vampire in it. And then this episode, when we launch into that, is actually going to be about Count. So...
Yeah, we had a listener request, Count. Yep. It was on our... list of episode topics, but since it was requested, we decided to get that done.
Yep, it happened.
It's getting done, and we hope you like it.
Yeah. So, as far as last week's episode in the Kingdom that followed, we should read the cards that are in it.
Yeah,
I'll take care of it.
Thanks.
All right. So the Kingdom that we played had Caravan Guard, Forager, Guide, Harbinger, Cemetery, Duke, Inn, Storyteller, Swashbuckler, Vampire. Once more for our audio-only listeners, we had Caravan Guard, Forager, Guide, Harbinger, Cemetery, Duke, Inn, Storyteller, Swashbuckler, and Vampire.
Alright, so I think what we agreed on last time was essentially the first 4 or so turns of the game.
Yeah,
and
basically.
And that was open double silver, hope to get 1, maybe 2 vampires ASAP.
Yeah, I think we both agreed that we want at least 2 vampires, and we also both kind of said that we thought that Duke Duchy split was going to be super important, right? We both called that.
Yeah, I think we both said that Duchy Duke would likely be your main source of points.
Yeah. And then we diverged from there. Basically, I wanted to build a bunch and use foragers for plus buy and draw a bunch with swashbucklers and have the chests and inns and work in some storytellers as well and have these big explosive turns. And you wanted to start pressuring points sooner, play a ton of vampires, and just edge out the Duchy split to the point where you get so many points that I can't catch them.
Yeah, so it involved a lot of vampires and then gained duchies and dukes. So, like, the vampire duke, for the ease of discussion, I want to call that Quackula strats.
Sure. I mean, we could call it Turbo Vampire, but Quackula seems,
Yeah.
yeah.
It seems definitely more appropriate.
Yeah.
So, with Quackula strats, you get, like, 4 or 5 vampires, and after your economy essentially just peters out, because you are eating all your coppers to feed your bats to get your vampires back.
You're not playing an economy-driven deck. You're getting gains with Vampire, yeah.
Yeah, so like after a couple silvers, you transition to guides, and then the whole point of your deck is just to play vampires and get lots of duchies and dukes. I mean, this is an okay thing. It beats the bot, but that really isn't saying much. Actually, out of all the things we tried, I think this is probably the worst.
So I want to say that what I suggested wasn't very good either. Mostly the idea of getting storytellers is bad here. I thought storyteller was going to be a champ, but in the end, there's so much draw, so much thinning that like what you're short on is honestly cards to get the chest from Swashbuckler. And economy and just like storyteller doesn't really help you with anything that you're trying to do. Unfortunately, I really thought storyteller was going to be good. Turns out it wasn't.
Rip. Storyteller's with Harambe now.
Yeah.
Hardly knew you.
Yeah. So I mean, I think both of our decks proved to be like we both got like a different half of I think what's good here, right?
You're trying to give me too much credit here. I don't think, I mean, what half did I get?
I was gonna throw you a bone, but yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, you wanted to buy cards.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah,
I nailed it.
Yeah, okay, so...
I fucking nailed it.
Okay, so let's, what ended up being good here?
So I think you definitely have to draw a lot.
I think we both got, that thing we agreed on at first, I think that's right. I think
what
that
thing?
Where you open double silver and you get 2 vampires as soon as you can. Maybe we're flexible on the double silver open, but I think you want the 2 vampires.
I don't think we're flexible on the double silver opening. What else would you get?
Oh, I don't know. Guide. Silver guide, silver forager.
I'm not going to open with a guide.
I lean toward double silver being best. I'm going to think. But then I'm going to get double silver.
Yeah, we did that last time too. We thought, and then we decided double silver.
Sure.
So I think the reason you want to build a lot is because I had originally thought, oh, well, this vampire into Duke, this Quackula strats, would be very flexible. So if I don't win the Duchy split, oh, well, my vampires can just gain some other stuff, some inns and some swashies. I want swashies anyway to help along with that deck. I want a couple of them. So I thought that would be good. It turns out the deck is very inflexible, and that's the real problem with it. If Duchies are contested and you don't get your fair share of them, you're just dead.
Well, can't
really win.
You kind of need to get 5, right? Like, it's not even enough to get 4 because...
You need 5, and you really want 6.
Right, you really want 6. And, like, if you don't get 5, the thing is, like, a 4-4 Duchy split is also kind of death when you have gone all in on that Duchy thing like that. Because, you know, your opponent's deck is better suited to do other stuff than your deck is. Because your deck can't do crap. So
yeah, that's right. So that's reason number 1 why you don't want to go with Quackula strats, why building more is good.
Yeah.
But I think the big reason is it turns out this is something that both of us were that we didn't get the read on last time, is that you actually don't really need to go for a Duchy and Duke. If you build enough, you can just build a deck that double provinces a few times, and you can empty the provinces. You don't even have to contest Duchies. You can just let any Duke-centered strategy at all just have as many Duchies as they want, and you'll have enough provinces to have more points in them no matter what they do by the time the game's over.
Yeah, by the time the game's over, that's the key. Is that like the duchies can't get their insurmountable points lead so quickly that you can't outpace it with provinces. I think Duchy Duke takes how many buys to outpace provinces?
Like 55.
Yeah, it's like that.
I don't know how many games you
depends.
need, but like you can't do it before turn 20 reasonably.
Yeah, so
It's like forever.
So it's interesting. I think Wandering Winder is the one who eventually figured that out, right? And
well, he definitely went for a build that was very effective, and with that effective of a build, when you're online getting the treasure chest on turn 11 or something and having a thin deck, I mean, you look at your path to victory and it's like, oh, well, I can get all of the provinces and there's nothing my opponent can do about that, so that's what you do.
Yeah.
But he could have just gone for duchies and beat me that way, too.
Well,
the deck is just a lot better.
I mean, it depends, because, here's the thing. I was building basically a very similar, if not the same deck, and it was winning a lot of the time, but, losing some of the time, too.
It could, fall on its face and not accomplish
And
much,
I think the difference is that I contested duchies. I contested Duchy Duke, and I should have just, said, screw your duchies, I'm gonna get the better points, and just let you do your duchy thing. But I contested it, and I think that opened up losses when I would have had wins, by just having a better deck. But let's walk through what the build was like. So you open double silver, and then your next few turns are getting the next shuffle. You want to get a vampire. You want to get that second vampire ASAP. And in the meantime, I actually took a guide instead of silver number 3. And I took a forager instead of silver number 4.
So I had a lot of success with forager on the next 2 buys.
Sure, there's an argument for that
before
as well.
ever getting any guides.
I kind of wanted to just cycle to my bat and vampire faster with the guide, but the forager is a good card to have in the deck.
I think forager is more effective at doing that because it thins you right away. This idea that you can't increase your deck size because vampire bat doesn't do that over the long term, and forager also doesn't do that. It looks a little bit daunting, but it turns out when you get a thin deck, you can just get the treasure chest super fast. And you'll have plenty of stuff to feed your foragers.
You do have to, manage your deck a little bit to get the treasure chest because, obviously once you have your deck in your hand, you can't get any more coffers from Swashy. So, it's not so easy, but the fact that Inn is one of the best enablers for that, right? Inn is a village, and it puts cards in your discard pile, so Inn is really good at helping you get the chest. The other thing is that you can gain Inns, either with Vampire or Buys, and put them into a shuffle with your swashbucklers, etc., to help you get coffers and get the chest faster. So you get an Inn near the bottom of a shuffle. You have a lot more control than you would think over whether or not you can get that chest and when you can get it. So yeah, we were talking about. I think I usually had it by between turns 11 and 13. And you said Wandering Winder usually got it by turn 11, right? And
I played a couple games with him, and he got it turn 10 or 11, and then one game it was 13.
So yeah, there's some optimization there that you can go for. But yeah, once you get the chest, things get to be pretty good. Forager gets to be a really good card this game because there are 3 or 4 treasures in the trash.
Oh, that haunted mirror.
Yeah, I actually don't take Ghost on this board. I declined to take a Ghost even when I could take it for free because I didn't think the Ghost was a good card for the deck.
That's because you hit Forager one too many times. I think what needs to happen is you don't play Ghost unless you've shuffled some stuff within that you can hit with the Ghost.
Sure.
So I did eventually have some success with it, but if you're just gonna YOLO Ghost,
I didn't have the cojones. Yeah,
that feels pretty bad. But even then, it's still not awful.
Yeah,
it's not the worst thing ever.
Yeah. So that's about the build, and at that point you just have a bunch of Inns and swashbucklers, and you draw and play foragers. You have a bunch of money and buys, etc. The difference, of course, again, was that I think you probably just play that deck and ignore Duke.
I don't think you have to go for Dukes.
Yep.
To win. If you're playing that deck, you certainly don't.
Yeah.
I was just really surprised at how bad Vampire Duke actually was. Like, I tried lots of different builds with different numbers of vampires. So, like, different levels of commitment to Quackula strats. And, like, all of it just wasn't good. It was just really slow, and it wasn't all that impressive. Vampire just really isn't that good of a Duke enabler. That's what I learned from this.
No,
let me tell you, I played a lot of Vampire Duke against people who were taking really long turns with In and Swashbuckler, and I don't want to play this kingdom ever again.
This is true.
I'm tired of it.
Yeah, there's a point where your eyes just glaze over, and you're like, why me?
Yep.
But yeah. So anyway, yeah, I think we've pretty much. I mean, I feel like I know less about this kingdom than when we started. But, like...
That's how you know you're doing it, though. Like,
Yeah.
the moment you feel like you have Dominion figured out, that's the moment that you stop getting better at the game.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about Dominion. I'm talking about this kingdom of Dominion.
But this is Dominion.
This is a game of Dominion, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so,
this
like...
kingdom represents Dominion, just like Dominion represents life.
That's true. And none of us are drinking enough water, but...
Yeah.
So yeah, that's this kingdom. And, maybe we missed something, but at this point I don't care.
Yep.
So let's move on, and we move into Count.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so Count is a card.
Yeah, it's pretty okay. Let me read you the text of Count.
Yeah, do that.
So Count is a 5-cost action. It's from the Dark Ages expansion, and it says, choose one, discard 2 cards, or put a card from your hand onto your deck, or gain a copper. Then, choose one. Plus $3, or trash your hand, or gain a duchy. So it's 2 choose ones. You get a choice of 3 bad things, and then a choice of 3 good things. You can pick one of each.
The idea behind the card is that you do a bad thing first, and then you do a good thing. And, like, you're doing the bad thing partially as, like, payment to get the good thing, right?
Yeah, like originally this was going to be a promo as an homage to the game Shadows over Camelot, where on your turn you do a bad thing and then you do a good thing. And then if you believe me? Yeah, I just made that up. This was never going to be a promo.
Oh, what? I was into this narrative.
That was pretty good, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty sick. Just know that... the way you can tell who the traitor is in Shadows over Camelot is their bad thing is they always put out a catapult. That's like the worst bad thing you can do, and the only reason you would do that is if you were the traitor.
Alright, so Count.
And that has a Dominion analog, and I know how much Jake appreciates the card Catapult.
Yeah.
And anyone who puts that out in the kingdom is a traitor.
Yeah.
Look at that thematic connection.
I don't mind Catapult that much, but anyway, so...
There's like one game... I think it was a podcast kingdom with Catapult, and you were just, like, done with it by the end of it. Kind of like you were done with those Quackula games.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, so sometimes the kingdoms do wear on you eventually, but yeah, certain attacks are more likely to make that happen. But yeah.
So, like, yeah, you do a bad thing, and then you do a good thing. And so one of the bad things is you can top deck a card, and one of the good things is plus $3.
Yeah.
So Count, strictly better than Mandarin since 2012.
Yeah, I know. There's this joke that, like, Mandarin is just the worst 2 options on Count, and it costs the same.
Well, I don't think it's the worst 2 options on Count, but it does have the on-gain, quote, drawback.
There we go. So you play Count, and you get those 2 things to happen, and, like... The idea is that these good things are so good that they make up for the fact that this card isn't just doing stuff for you for free, that it's asking you to do something every time you play it.
Yeah, otherwise you would just lose every game of Shadows over Camelot right away.
Yeah. So, we're going to talk about first the main thing that you'll end up using Count for, which, spoilers, is trashing cards. And then we'll get into the other thing that Count does, its secondary function, which is everything else. So...
Yeah, like, Count has 9 permutations of things you can do, right?
Yeah.
And
one of them is as common as all the others combined, would say.
Well, yeah, I mean, it boils down to, are you trashing with this or are you not trashing with this? I think everything else that happens around, all the other decisions you make in Count are based around making the trashing what you want it to be this turn.
Yeah.
Or making the not trashing what you want it to be, which is a little more broad. But, I mean, you can look at this card and you can think back to our Governor episode or a Minion episode where we're like, this card has modes, and some of them are payloads, some of them are deck control, and so I can break it down to the payload modes and the deck control modes, and I can use that to look for synergies. And this is Governor's a flexible card, and the synergies revolve around finding redundancy on what it does, so it frees up my Governor plays. And the Minion is, it's got this flexibility that increases consistency in the kind of deck that it builds, and Count's not like that.
Not really. Well, partially because the payload is not that impressive. I mean, it can be, but like
I am impressed
in a very narrow way. Like the Count payload is really good at like one thing. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about trashing.
Yeah. So the trashing.
I love trashing cards.
Okay. So Count is it can theoretically trash boundless cards, but like usually it's trashing 3 cards. Because what you're doing is you have to take at least 1 card out of your hand to trash, or you have to gain a card in the process. So like you're technically trashing more, but like you're net trashing 3, and that's assuming you draw it with junk. So like as a trasher, it's almost strictly worse than Chapel. It's not a damning statement, right? I mean, like most cards are strictly worse than Chapel, or like worse than Chapel at least. So like
worse than Chapel at trashing, that's for sure.
But and this is a 5-cost card, but the fact that it can trash multiple cards per shuffle gives it a very, very high value floor. Like there is a very high minimum standard of what this does for you, just because it trashes cards, and it does so reasonably quickly.
Sure. So you said you're usually trashing 3 cards. It can be more, it can be less, but I think 3 cards is a pretty good benchmark.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm not trashing 3 cards to my count, I feel sad inside when I'm not trashing that many cards. And I think that's good. Like, if I'm trashing less than that, it feels bad, and maybe I should consider, doing something else.
Well, okay, for the record, like, usually if you're trashing less than that, it's because you drew wrong. You drew in a bad situation. You've already got... But, like, yeah, if you can see that situation coming, maybe you don't put the count in your deck.
Well, it's like I got my count. Maybe I opened with it because I'm lucky, and then I don't see it till turn 5, and I draw it with the 2 silvers that I bought on turn 3 or turn 4.
Yeah, that's pretty sad.
You can also with 2 coppers.
Right.
Just to put that giant U right in there.
Yeah.
So at that point, what you can do is...
Resign?
Well, you eventually resign, but first you have to swear a lot.
Yeah.
You have to get really salty, and this is something that's definitely worth whining about. And remember, part of the value of this podcast.
Yeah, is helping you identify the things you're going to whine about like before the game starts, so that you're prepared.
Yeah, if you're prepared to whine about it, and you prepare your opponent to have the whining, to receive the whining, it's just it's a lot better situation.
Yeah. Okay, so we should talk about what the quote-unquote standard play is of the count. Like when
you're just playing normal Dominion.
Yeah, no, we're talking about like what are you going to see people play count as the most option? I said one of these combinations of count effects is as common as like all the others combined.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that is gain a copper, trash hand.
Wow.
That's usually what you do.
Wow, we need to get stats on all of the count plays ever.
I'm not saying but I want to talk about the whys of it. I don't really care about the stats or numbers, but like...
I love numbers.
I know. 3 is a good number.
Come on. 55?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about... You draw your count with some junk cards. Starting cards that you wanted to trash, and you're looking at what to do about that, and that's usually why you bought the count, so you're happy.
Trash your hand.
Yeah, you usually
Let me at 'em.
So you could top deck a card and trash your hand, or you could gain a copper, trash your hand, And
don't top deck a card.
yeah, I mean, the
Don't
idea
do that.
is that you top deck a card or you gain the copper, you have netted the same number of bad cards in your deck, except if you top deck the card, that copper presumably is on top of your deck, whereas if you gain the copper is in your discard pile. So it's about the position the copper is in, and usually it's better to gain copper trash hand. So that's why that's considered like the quote-unquote standard play. Of course, that's assuming you didn't draw the count with something you don't want to trash.
Sure, like if I draw it with a silver.
Yeah.
You go ahead and top deck that silver. That's fine.
Yeah.
Right? There's really nothing bad about that because you still get to play the silver, and you can still trash 3 cards from your deck. That's fine. Or even with a cantrip. Like I draw my count with a cantrip and 3 junks.
Sure.
I know maybe I can play the cantrip now, or I can just punt it till next turn, because I'm still just going to be trashing 3 cards.
Right, you're probably not doing anything else with the turn where you trash with count, because you trash your whole hand. It's not some of your hand, it's the whole thing. So
Yeah, so this is actually a relatively instructive comparison to make.
Yeah.
Finally, a relatively instructive comparison to make with count. So if I want to look at something else that trashes multiple cards from my hand,
yeah,
let's look at my favorite Dominion card.
Chapel. No.
Steward. That's right.
Yeah.
Steward is my favorite card. And, you trash 2 cards, but with Steward, along with the fact that you can open with it, which is a huge frickin' deal, but that's not what I'm talking about. You trash 2 cards, and you still have 2 cards left over. So if they're both coppers, you can buy 2 costs if there is one, or if there's a silver, you can buy a 3 cost a lot of times. All these are super, super great options. But with count, I'm either discarding 2 cards, which means I don't get to play them and use them to buy something, which is super sad, which is a lot of reason why you should feel really sad if you're only trashing 2 cards with count.
Right.
Or I'm top decking 1 and trashing the rest, and it's still really hard to buy things, right? I mean, I would have to have $3 in virtual payload or something, and that's not something I'm building my deck around at the start of the game.
Yeah, so the idea is that count acts sort of like something you would compare to a chapel, where like you are using your whole turn to trash cards, but you're trashing a ton of cards. So at the same
Steward
time,
definitely comes out on top of this comparison.
Yeah. So at the same time, it's interesting because the count, even though it has these modes that keep you flexible, because like you can draw it with other things, and top deck stuff or discard stuff if you draw it with 2 good cards, but like we said, you feel really bad doing it. So the count is really less of an ice pick and more of a sledgehammer, as in the count is good when you have a bunch of bad cards in your deck and you need some hardcore demolition. And not so good when you just need to clean the foyer a bit, because you need to clean those last few bad cards out.
Yeah, I like to clean my foyer with an ice pick.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I have called count the sledgehammer of trashing.
Yeah.
Because it really, and that's a really enlightening analogy, because, I mean, as you said, it's at its best when you just swing it and it just demolishes a whole bunch of crap you didn't want.
Exactly.
And in the right situations, when the sledgehammer is the right tool, this is a very good thing for me.
Yeah, count is bad at count is very good at removing cards from your deck, but it's bad at removing any given card from your deck. So like any given 1 or 2 cards, it's bad at finding it and getting rid of it, but it's really good at clearing cards out of your deck in bulk.
Right, so it kind of has the same problem that something like Lookout does. Something
or Doctor.
It does. Yeah, something that doesn't trash from your hand. It doesn't necessarily give you that fine-tuned control. It's very difficult to get really thin with just count.
Yeah, or deal with being junked.
Deal with sustained junking.
Yeah.
Right, if someone opens with a Sea Hag, like, sure, give me a count. Like, I'll just trash the curses, because I'm just trashing the first few times I played anyway.
Sure.
And then they got a Sea Hag, and now their deck is bad, and I have this count, which is a good card.
Right.
On the other hand, later on, when I have good cards in my deck, and only 1 bad card I want to trash, the sledgehammer is not the right tool for the job. So getting rid of the starting cards quickly is something we really want, and as such, it does follow that count is at its best when you can get it early enough that you're not going to be running it into all of your good cards.
Which is why it joins the leagues of, Century in Vampire and stuff like that. These $5 cards that are really, really good if you get to open with them.
Yeah, and they get a lot worse.
A lot worse if you can. And like the idea is that you've usually had to put some stop cards like silvers into your deck to get the count in the first place.
And you're not gonna sit there and just not put good cards in your deck so that your trasher can be slightly more effective.
I mean,
it's just not a way to win games.
Yeah, it's usually really bad to do that. Like almost always.
So I mean, you can open with a count is fantastic. You can get a count turn 3 or turn 4, and it is good. It's going to get the job done. Yeah. However, if you manage to not get a count until turn 5 or later, you need to seriously think about using it for trashing, because it is not going to be very effective at trashing for you.
I mean, like, obviously, most boards, you want to go for trashing if it's there, but, like, when the trashing options are so bad, like a turn 5 or 6 count, that's all you've got, sometimes not trashing is the stronger option than going for this thing that's so bad at dealing with the situation that you're in.
And that's not to say don't get the count.
Yeah, I mean, this is
still be
it's hard to generalize, but yeah.
It can still be a good card, but if you're going to get that count on turn 5 or later, and then you're going to expect to actually have good hands for trashing with that count...
You could always get lucky.
You could.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if my opponent whined about that, I wouldn't feel bad at that point.
Right.
Because that's just not a realistic expectation. And I actually think it's a decent comparison. We were talking about Bat last week.
Yeah.
And, like, getting a count on turn 5 or later, it's a lot like using a Bat for thinning.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good comparison to make. Yeah. So, I mean, that's about all we've got for a count as a trasher. I measure. So in theory, you could use it sort of like Forager Mint, where it's got these, this trasher that likes big hands to trash, because it trashes boundless cards. But in practice, I've never really seen that be super relevant, because it requires so much support to do it. You have to have like villages aplenty to increase your hand size and then play the count. And usually at that point, like, I've just been thinning with the count gradually as I've gone, and I don't need that big hand to trash. But in theory, you could support count with draw. Yeah.
There was so as a trasher, it does feel a little bit janky. I do remember one game I played on stream a long time ago, where it was the relevant cards were Lab and Count and Tunnel, and I still had some junks left over, but I had already started. Like, I did put a Tunnel in the deck. I was gaining some golds with it, and I played some Labs. I had this hand with Count, and there was a lot of bad cards, but I had 3 good cards. And, like, you know, I had a Tunnel that I wanted to discard and gain a gold. There might have been 2 of them. But I couldn't get all the good cards out. But all my bad cards were in there. And I decided, all right, it's worth it. I'm going to let 1 gold get caught in the friendly fire. I'm going to just pitch everything. I just gained some golds with Tunnel. And this was, I think it was a league match, so I wasn't looking at the chat. But I went back later and reviewed the chat where I could see it live. And everyone in the chat absolutely hated this move. Okay. They said, why would you trash a gold with Count? This is terrible. And I felt really good about... I mean, I didn't feel good trashing a gold at that point, but I felt really confident that I had made the best play. And I was kind of already a little bit ahead, and I did end up winning the game, so it's unclear, but I stand behind it. But that was the closest that I can sort of come to that. It seems a little bit edge case.
It's time for Edge Case. With Wandering Winder, I'm Batman. We're talking about Count, and let me tell you, there's some edge cases with Count. First of all, gaining coppers is one of the bad things you have to do, but sometimes is good, right? When is copper good? When it's a better than average card in your deck and is likely to be for, a long time. So I'm not talking like, I opened Count on turn 1. And my average money density is low enough that copper is actually one of the better cards in my deck. So I should gain copper because it will improve... No, because you want to trash coppers then, because, at the moment it's better than average, but very, very shortly it's going to be a crap card in your deck. Don't do that. Not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is like your deck is full of greens and purples and whatever, and you just want to be buying like a gardens. So like copper helps you buy it because you know that your ambition in life is very low. So like yeah, copper helps you buy it. So that's cool. That's fine. Other times coppers can be good, right? You need more food. You need fuel for your trashing stuff that needs to, like, you want to play a forager and get 4 money or something, or just 2 money or whatever. Or you need the plus buy. But you're out of bad cards to trash. Well, you can gain copper with your count. Boom, there you go. Presto. Similar with bat. Like with vampire bat is a thing. But you can't keep flipping back and forth after all your junk is gone because you got to keep feeding the bat. Well, count, gain a copper. You can do that. It works, right? There's some other reasons why coppers might be good, right? Some stuff calls out treasure specifically, and some stuff calls out copper specifically. So, right, we're talking about spice merchant, right? Spice merchant, you're going to run out of stuff to do with your spice merchant. Well, gaining copper lets you keep using your spice merchant for stuff. That's similar to the fuel kind of thing, fuel food thing. Similar to, you could do money lender, right? I mean, it's not great in that case, but you know, if you're overdrawing, right, you gain the copper, you draw it up, and now your money lender still makes you 3 money. So that's nice. It's like counts making you extra money. Other stuff that the coppers can be useful for, palace, right? I have ways to gain extra silvers, and I have ways to gain extra golds on all kinds of other cards, but like you got to keep up with your coppers, and sure, you could buy them, but that's not very efficient. So like if you can gain them from count, that's nice, right? Trying to get for a ton of palace points. Hey, we are in edge case with Wandering Winder. And speaking of we are in edge case with Wandering Winder, bank. Yeah, I said bank, right? You know, you're way overdrawing your deck. You just need to add more payload. You really need more money. Copper, gain a copper. It's going to be worth 2 because you've got a bank. You have 2 banks. It's worth 3 effectively. Ooh, that's a good card. It's not really a good card, but, you know, whatever. In comparison to other cards, maybe it's not great, but the opportunity cost of getting it is low because you just gain it with a count and it's doing something positive for you if you have enough draw. So like it can come up again, edge case. Sometimes you just have like 15 money in your deck and you need to get to 16. You just need 1 more money. If you're drawing well enough, like it doesn't matter that it's less efficient than silver or gold if your whole point is to like get to an exact price point. You're only 1 away from it. It's a copper. It's a fine card. Gain it. Sure. Whatever. Also, sometimes you want bad cards in your deck. We're talking Ambassador. We're talking Masquerade. We're talking, this is edge case with Wandering Winder, people. I don't know what you were expecting. Other things that count does. It doesn't only gain coppers, surprisingly enough. It can also gain duchies. That can be good. I mean, sometimes it's just like the end game, right? But sometimes it's more than that, right? Duke, boom. You know, you want to be able to gain lots of duchies fast for your Duke strategy. Gaining the duchy there is useful, and then you can like still buy a silver. You don't waste your buy on it, right? And then later on, like you're gonna have to buy dukes. You can't get around that. Maybe you buy the duke at the same time. I don't know, but like yeah, gaining duchy is better when duke is a thing, right? Duchess, that is hashtag value. You're not only getting a duchy, you're getting a duchess. Now that assumes that you want a duchess, which you usually don't, but you know sometimes you do. It's great. There's like this normal Silk Road, garden, sloggy kinds of things that usually aren't good and still usually aren't good here. But, you know, if for whatever reason you want to do that, gaining a duchy can help with that sloggy kind of strategy because you can gain a duchy and buy a Silk Road or gardens in the same turn sometimes. Hey, that's nice. That's not bad. That's not bad. You got Shepherd and Crossroads. Sometimes you just need to stuff your deck with extra green cards for your Shepherds and Crossroads to help you draw more. Usually you don't need to do that because you're lowering your density of Shepherds and Crossroads, which is kind of scary sometimes, but sometimes you get to the point where you have enough of those things that actually increases your draw. It increases your deck control to add another green card to your deck. So gaining a duchy there is great. You know, these things, most of the things I've just described, not very good, at least not very good very often, but it's a thing that comes up, not never, and this is edge case with Wandering Winder. More to the point on the duchy thing, right? Sometimes you just need, like, it's nice to gain some card that costs 5, and then you're gonna like salvage it or remodel it or something like that, right? Trash for benefit card, you get some benefit and it costs 5, so like when you salvage it, you get 5 in a buy, and hey, that's pretty good economically speaking, right? That's better than just the 3 money you were gonna get from playing your count, man. Okay, what else can count do for you? It can get you 2 cards in a single play. Yeah, I don't really know why you necessarily want to be able to do that, but sometimes you just need to be able to shove extra cards in your deck. So like gaining a copper and gaining a duchy is a thing that sometimes comes up. We're just like, I needed extra cards for my gardens. Or just like you needed extra cards because you need to be able to trash stuff because you really have a lot of stuff that needs fuel, needs food. So like your forager, you're playing like 3 of them. You just need to gain cards whatever way you can. Look, dude, count is there for you. It's 2 extra gains. What else does count do? Right? It top decks stuff. That can be really good. It's actually a real thing. This is a little bit less edge case with Wandering Winder, but just like, I drew my deck. I had to have some extra stuff to help be reliable, but now I can top deck that extra village. I've seeded my next hand. That's hashtag reliability, man. That's not even that rare. That's something that actually really comes up. Seeding your next hand is pretty good. Sometimes it's not, because like you don't have the overdraw or whatever. You really need to be able to play all your actions. Whatever, don't do the top decking then. It's fine, right? But yeah, no, it can be good for reliability. It can be a real positive thing. It can also, maybe you're not drawing your deck, but you want to be able to money smooth. It's the courtyard effect, right? This doesn't come up super often, but again, like you're doing money, being able to smooth your money is not bad in those kinds of situations. And sometimes there's a case like, you have Philosopher's Stone, and that's a wombo combo, right? Philosopher's Stone, I have 2 Philosopher's Stones together, or I have my Philosopher's Stone and I have my potion. I don't want to, I don't want to waste the potion this shuffle, so I'm going to top deck it. Or I'm going to top deck the Philosopher's Stone by the thing with my potion now, or whatever, right? I have 2 Philosopher's Stones. I don't want to waste them with the collision. I have multiple counts. I don't want to waste them with the collision. You smooth out. So the top decking can be good then. You have too many good cards at once, right? Again, this is edge case with Wandering Winder. It's not a common scenario, but it's something that comes up. It's something to think about. Discarding cards can be good. It could be a good thing. Tunnel's great. No, Tunnel sucks. You think Tunnel is good, think again. If you still think it's good, think again. If you still think it's good, think again. If you still think it's good, then maybe it's probably still bad. But sometimes it's good, okay? And you don't want to overdo it. And usually the problem when you're doing for the tunnel is that you have a tunnel in your deck, and like being able to maybe get some golds eventually is usually not worth having to have a tunnel in your deck. But sometimes it comes up like I'm drawing 55 cards a turn and I don't have an econ. I need to be able to grow my econ. So like discard a tunnel with my count and then redraw the tunnel in the gold. And that's some econ for you. There you go. Yeah. More often you've got some kind of a draw to X or menagerie or diplomat, that kind of thing going on, right? Being able to discard either bad cards or superfluous cards or duplicate cards in the case of menagerie can be really good. Or, in the case of diplomat, it lets you get the village effect. Obviously you have to have some kind of village before this, but it can help to be additional on that. Draw to X, you can discard your green cards, you can keep going. Discarding cards can be a positive thing. And actually I want to point out this is especially true with count, because count is often used largely as a trasher. Pretty bad at trashing the last couple of bad cards. So pretty often if you're trying to play one of those decks and you have count, you're gonna have a couple bad cards. So the ability to discard a couple of them can be really positive actually. So really do keep that in mind, even if it is a bit edge casey. And then the last edge case I want to note is that when you pick the trash your hand option, it usually means your action phase is over. Because like you don't have a hand anymore. But it doesn't have to, because you could have rats or fortress, and then you still have cards in your hand afterwards. I mean, it basically doesn't really help you. It's like you can't really plan for that very well. Just like, yeah, you might do it, but it's not going to be like, my plan is to use the count trash option, and then because I had fortresses in my hand, I can keep all, like, yeah, but you could have kept going by playing the fortresses also. Like, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, this has been Wandering Winder with Edge Cased.
Well, anyway, so
that was something.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So we should probably talk about the other stuff that Count does, right? We've gone at into lengths about the trashing, but it has some other stuff it does for you.
Yeah, like we had all these comparisons to other trashers, and Count was not usually coming out on top in terms of how good it is at trashing cards, especially because it costs 5 and it's hard to open with it.
Right.
But you can get thin, and then you have this card in your deck
that
is good still.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is like the Count being good, quote-unquote, at the trashing that it's doing can, be evaluated alongside the other aspects of Count, because, it's a card outside of a vacuum that's, like, in your deck or not in your deck, despite how good or bad it is at trashing.
But, yeah, it does allow for you to have this build, though, that's a little bit unique to Count. It's tough to find this exact build without support of multiple cards, where Count's really good at getting the starting cards out.
Yeah.
And so you do that, right? You get your Count soon, and then you're trashing your hand, and you're probably not buying stuff, and all of a sudden your deck is super small, and, it's maybe got 5 cards in it or so, and now, okay, well, it's time to put some payload in.
Yeah.
But now you have this Count. With a Chapel, I would have had to slow down my thinning to make sure, well, I've got to make sure I get a silver, and then probably have to another silver, and I can buy my 5er, and I don't have to deal with that with Count. Because I can just sledgehammer it all down, and now I've got a Count.
Yeah, and, maybe the Count gains you a copper at some point, because you had to sledgehammer and you trash a copper you would have kept, or maybe you just used it to hit 3, what have you. But yeah, the Count has these payload modes, and almost everything else that the card does is payload.
In terms of the good options, yes.
Well,
which are the things you really care about. Getting the $3 in a super thin deck like that is really great, and you can plan your build around that.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, I do say mostly, because I want to say that where Count really shines, I would say, is when you can take that bad thing that it's doing and turn it into a good thing, or at least a nothing, right? Or at least, like, it doesn't hurt you, or it's even good for you. So, like, Count is mostly payload other than the trashing, but there are times when that discarding, or more relevantly the top decking, can actually be a deck control function that helps you stay consistent.
Yeah, a lot of times as you're building, you've finished trashing, and now you're more considering Count seriously for its payload functions. You're going to find yourself, you've drawn your deck, and you have maybe some deck control cards left over in your deck, because you've overdrawn, and this is something that works well with Count because of the bad things that it does. Being sort of negative functions of that. One thing you can do is, I can count and discard 2 coppers, and I can play a lab. I can draw my coppers back.
Yeah.
Woo!
So, like, Count.
Don't do that. Top deck the lab instead. Okay. This is better.
I mean, okay, so yeah, in that situation, yes. But in other situations, maybe you, like, discarded and took the extra payload from Count and then drew back the coppers or whatever they were. And basically what this is telling you is that Count really wants to be in a deck that is drawing a bunch and has overdraw.
And it stands to reason, because that's one of the two main things that Count doesn't do all by itself.
Right. The other really good reason to put Count in a deck that is overdrawing is the top decking, because this is where the bad thing, quote unquote, that ends up being a good thing is usually the top decking. When you can be in that situation where Adam just described, where you've got some deck control, you've got a lab or city quarter or something, and a lot of the time being able to top deck that extra deck control card and seed next turn's hand or a village or whatever is more valuable than whatever else the Count was doing. So a lot of the time, you're just playing the Count to top deck. Now, given this is because you already have the Count in the deck. You wouldn't have bought the Count for that purpose. But, like, the getting to top deck with it can be a huge benefit.
So, in the situation where you've drawn your deck, this is absolutely true. In situations where you're not drawing your deck, this is still true.
Well,
like,
yeah,
in a money density, in a money density paradigm. I mean, you can call it seeding your next hand, or you can also look at it as actually Wandering Winder has already mentioned this, but it's like the Courtyard effect, where you get to smooth out your draws.
Yeah, which is really good for money density center decks because it helps them not quote unquote waste money.
For sure. So, I mean, I would consider in some cases putting Count in a deck where, using it for its trashing function was not a prominent feature.
Yeah.
So a money density deck in this case. I mean, there are the slogs that Wandering Winder talked about that have the synergies with gaining the duchy specifically.
Sure.
And maybe don't mind the coppers. And sure, Count is great in those decks. But I'm thinking more along the lines of this is just money density and I want a good card for that deck, which Count definitely is. Certainly plays nice with other terminals. Even plays nice with other trashers in those other types of decks, but really the smoothing effect is something that those decks really do welcome.
Yeah.
And with the money density, you tend to have some bad cards that you don't mind discarding if that's also the case. And finally, like it's really okay to just give yourself the chance to high roll and draw that Count with a couple of estates. And even though I didn't plan on putting that Count in the deck for the purpose of trashing, you might just wake up with a great hand to do it. So, give yourself the chance to get lucky.
Definitely.
Count as a first fiver in a deck like that is certainly a good buy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, and even if you don't get that dream scenario, like, giving yourself the chance to get lucky usually doesn't, like, cost too much because the Count has other stuff it can do if it
Still
doesn't
a good
work out.
card.
Yeah, so, like, these detriments, turning them into benefits, it sounds really narrow, it sounds really edge casey, and yet it comes up more often than you'd think. And that's because
there's so many options, yeah.
Right. It's not so much. I mean, yes, wanting to gain a copper, or not minding if I do, that's an edge case. Wanting to top deck something, not minding if I do, that's an edge case. Wanting to discard, not minding if I do, that's an edge case. But wanting one of those three, or not minding, that's a lot less of an edge case.
It's
because
like one-third of edge casiness.
Yeah, I don't need any one of those to be good for me. I need any one of those to be good for me. And then the Count becomes a much better card.
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
This is actually a really good way of, like, wrapping up even the edge case segment.
Right,
That's really insightful. Jake, I'm really glad you're on this podcast.
I am ready to do this. I'm going to rip my shirt off. All right. Yeah, but, so...
that's kind of hot, Jake.
Yeah. Whew.
All right.
Okay, so the other payload elements, right? Like we should talk about.
Gain a duchy.
Yeah. So gain a duchy. That's where the card really gets interesting to me because like gain a duchy is a kind of rare effect. Like gain a card costing up to 5 is kind of rare, and like gain a duchy specifically, it's kind of a rare effect to see on a card. I mean, did anything have that pre-Dark Ages?
I mean, Alter got it at the same time.
Yeah. So, the thing is, I want to harken back to the discussion about Vampire, where, like, when I have the Count in the deck, if there's a chance I could draw it, or if there is a chance that, or, like, if I have the gains or the actions to play it, you have to play as if I have a duchy. Like you can't like leave me ready to pile out or get the last province if a duchy is gonna clutch it for me. You have to pretend that I have that duchy if I have the Count and I might draw it. And on my end, I don't have the duchy. I have this Count instead that could gain a duchy if that's gonna win me the game, but it could also do other stuff. So like having a Count in your deck is great for your end game positioning. And that's not why you bought the Count. I don't want to like imply like you buy the Count because you need points or whatever. No, I'm saying
buy because it trashes cards.
Right, you bought it or did these other things. Like the Count is usually a good card to have in the deck, and you've got it. And so like the fact that you have to have these endgame considerations with the Count is just something that like pushes you toward buying the Count if it was close before. Like, because like just having that endgame positioning to gain the duchy is really strong.
Yeah, there's a little bit of synergy with the fact that a deck that builds a little more, like one that invests maybe several early game turns into trashing bad cards. So the kind of deck that Count enables in terms of building a little more is sometimes the same kind of deck that enjoys having a way to catch up with additional points in the late game.
Yes.
So the ability, even if it's just the threat of gaining duchies in order to catch up, that ability is really welcome in many decks that have used Count early on. And so you may find yourself not using this very often, but the fact that it's there, it certainly does make the card better.
You never have to gain the duchy with Count for the duchy option on Count to be important.
Yeah, and this is like similar to what we talked about last week with Vampy.
Yeah, and kind of Salt the Earth too. Yay, points things do that.
Yeah, the place where Count struggles, at least in that same comparison, is that Count can only gain duchy and copper. Right? So it doesn't it's not plus buy, and it's not a very flexible game. So it isn't necessarily helping you build your deck in a way that gaining cards would.
Yes, I mean, it's not the same as being able to threaten 2 provinces out of the pile. That's a completely different concept that Count's not helping you get to.
2 provinces or 2 cards that can help you accelerate your deck building in other ways, like action cards, for example.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not plus buy, and it's not that kind of gain like maybe a vampire would be, but, duchies are great. I like duchies.
Yeah. So, other than that, it's the money. And I don't know, really, there's not a ton to say about the money.
I love money, too.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you $3, and usually it's because you had an extra action and you can play the Count, and you can get $3, and it's great. I mean, usually, the only place where I'd say Count is notable as something that gives you money is when you're using one of those detriments to your advantage. Like, you're using the discarding or the top decking, and then the fact that it gives you money on top of that is kind of relevant. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah, money's great.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
What is that art, by the way, with the Count? What is going on? Which one is the Count?
The guy with the face.
They both have a face. Is that a statue that he's talking to?
It's a really old guy.
Is it? Because that does not look like a human.
See, but the guy with the face is holding one finger up like he's counting.
Oh, is he counting? Oh, it's not even a noun. It's a verb.
Oh,
snap. Count. It's not.
Wow,
it's like remake. It's like
my Dominion lore has just been turned completely upside down. I need to go and rewrite all of my fan fictions.
Oh man, Count and Swashbuckler. They can't get together because Count doesn't exist. It's a verb.
Oh no. Oh man, I need to go back to my outlines and my love triangles and quadrangles and tetrahedrons.
A wine merchant will keep her company. But
speaking of wine merchant, we have a kingdom.
Oh yeah, we do have a kingdom, and it's got Count in it.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
it's got Count in it.
Yeah.
And, do you want to... Actually, it's my turn. I'm reading cards.
Yeah.
I'm going to read some cards, and here we go! Lighthouse, Moat, Alchemist, Improve, Merchant, Steward, Count, Festival, Wine Merchant, Hunting Grounds, and we have Exploration. One more time for our audio-only listeners. Lighthouse, Moat, Alchemist, Improve, Merchant, Steward, Count, Festival, Wine Merchant, Hunting Grounds, and we have Exploration. Look at that. Lighthouse and Moat, not an attack in sight.
No.
Boom!
That is funny, isn't it?
We did it, guys.
Yeah, okay, so...
also, it's funny that Improve is here, but there's no $4 card or action.
Yeah, that is kind of funny.
Yep.
Although, actually,
Improve
is a thing.
Still could be good because
there's
fibers and hunting grounds, and you can blow up a hunting grounds for a surprise duchy. # surprise duchy. I don't think I'm getting an Improve. Count.
Okay, This is interesting. We had actually gone back and forth a little bit on this before this started, and we agreed on very little. Yeah, I mean, we disagreed on most things. I think we both agreed that we want to open Exploration Steward, right?
Yeah, so Steward is here. We actually made some comparisons to Steward in the episode. And, Steward's great at trashing, you can open with it. So I definitely want one of them. And then you had brought up, what about a double Steward opening? And,
yeah.
That's certainly something to consider. I mean, Exploration is certainly fine here. You're going to get good value out of it.
One key difference here, part of the reason I'm considering double Steward, is that I'm also not thinking I want to count. I don't really think I want that.
Yeah, so this was mentioned, before we recorded the episode. Jake is like, well, if I don't want to count, then I lean more towards double Steward, which I agree with. If count's not here,
yeah,
I lean more towards a double Steward opening.
I mean, now, I will say, even then, Exploration is super tempting because you're going to have turns where you're not doing a lot. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, if you're going to open with a Trasher, Exploration is good.
Yeah.
Especially when there are no, two costs or things that you would buy on the turns that you were trash. Now, there is Lighthouse, and that's not awful. But, man, I think I'd rather have a Coffers and a Villager than put a Lighthouse in my deck.
Oh, for sure.
With no attacks.
I'm leaning toward not putting the Lighthouse in the deck, even if it's free. But
yeah, I don't think so.
Over,
definitely
over
not
Exploration, yeah, definitely not. Yeah, so I mean, I am gonna lean towards Steward Exploration.
I agree.
Over the
I
double
like that
Steward.
opening.
Yeah, partially because I think those villagers are actually so valuable.
The villagers are super great here. The only Villages Festival, and other than obviously the villagers from Exploration.
I want festivals in the deck, but it's not a priority to get them early. I'd rather be having draw in the deck early, and if I can build my deck super aggressively with terminals and have that villager buffer, I'm in great shape.
I mean, you're talking about building your deck aggressively with terminals, and it seems to me that if I could choose the composition of my deck, which surprise you can because you can buy cards and trash bad cards.
Yeah.
But if I could do that, I mean, that is going to be kind of aggressive. That's just because Festival doesn't draw a card. So in my 5-card opening hand, I have to find a Festival and looks like a Hunting Grounds, because that's going to be the bread and butter of how I draw cards here.
And that's
And I know Alchemist is right there.
Yeah,
and I still don't.
I'm pleading the fifth on Alchemist right now. I'm not really sure yet.
I'm not. I don't want it.
Okay,
I'm going on record right now.
So
I don't want it.
here's why I'm leaning toward, I'm at least considering the Alchemist. Like you said, the Hunting Grounds is a card that is really good for draw, but it's expensive and it draws a bunch of cards. So you're wanting to line them up with villages. And it's hard to get that many of them and enough villages to reliably do that, whereas the Alchemists can top deck and help you do that. So I think that the Alchemists are going to help me need less deck control in the long run.
This doesn't sound like you pleading the fifth. Sounds like you want it, man.
I'm thinking I do.
See, I like using Count to help me get up to Hunting Grounds and Festival.
Okay, yeah,
and I don't want the Alchemist.
You draw the Count, you can top deck a Festival or a Hunting Grounds, but track your deck to see which one is good. Yeah, sure.
It's going to be Hunting Grounds more often than not. We did a Hunting Grounds episode, and I actually talked about this particular thing. Hunting Grounds is one of those cards that you'd actually consider putting more copies of it in your deck than what you need to draw it.
Well, that's the thing. My thinking is that if I go for Alchemist, not only am I getting Alchemists, which are obviously a good card, but I have to put the potion in the deck, and that sucks. But in the meantime, at the end of that, the result is that I have to get fewer Hunting Grounds. Is that good? I mean, it frees up my buys to be for festivals, or maybe double merchant instead of given Hunting Grounds.
In my mind, every time that I would buy a Hunting Grounds, you're buying an Alchemist, right?
Man, it's hard to say because I also see the argument for the early Hunting Grounds, especially with Exploration being out, because that is really good. I am wanting to. I see a lot of merit to skipping Alchemist. I do, but I also am not thinking it's so much better that I'm not gonna want to try it. I'm definitely gonna experiment with Alchemist and.
But experiment's not on the board.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's easy for me to say given that I know I'm gonna have a billion tries at this kingdom. Whereas if you were just rolling this in a random ladder game, you'd have to guess right the first time. But
I'm guessing right the first time. I'm doing it here.
Yeah, so...
Despite the fact that I didn't do it last week, but, no one's perfect.
I think I'm going to get the potion, and I'm going to try for Alchemist.
All right.
Yeah, but
there you go.
I'm opening Steward...
You also say no count, right?
Yeah, I say no count.
Unless you open 5-2, obviously. I think you get it there.
And I'm actually probably picking up a second Steward within the first few turns, by the way. So I'm going Steward X-Blow, and then...
You're basically getting a Steward instead of a count, right? A second Steward instead of a count.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Suit yourself, man. I like count.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, I think that... Let's talk a little bit about what the deck looks like in the mid to late game.
Festivals and hunting grounds. Lots of them.
I could see spamming merchants being good, mostly because it's easy to do, and there's no real cost to it. You're gonna have extra buys occasionally that were it's like I can take a Steward, or I can take a Terminal that I don't really want, or I can take another Silver that...
Merchant's a good card for the deck, sure.
Yeah, so
I'm in.
I'm not thinking that's not your game plan, but I think you're gonna have some merchants.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I don't know.
Don't like Wine Merchant. Don't like Moat.
No, I don't like those.
Really not into Lighthouse. I would get it on a 5-2, but that's it.
I want to have probably an Improve in the deck at some point.
I think Improve actually has potential because it's likely that you're going to have a number of festivals, and at the end of your turn, you're going to have some terminal space left over. The Improve does have some utility. If I have a count laying around that I've decided would be better served as a hunting grounds, I have that option. If I want to improve a hunting grounds, blow it up and gain a duchy in the end of the game to threaten some more points.
Right.
That's also good.
I also have to play differently. Given if you have a count, I have to play differently because you have a count, and I have to pretend you have a duchy.
Similar with Improve, yeah.
Yeah, and if you have both, I have to I don't know what.
You're pretending I have
points.
so many duchies.
Yeah, I have to pretend you just have a billion points.
Yeah.
It's
Rip you, man. And then you'll just resign.
Yeah, that's why I resign so much, is I'm pretending that my opponent has... Yeah, but anyway.
That's a really high-level play.
Yeah.
That's really good. It's like when you go to these high-level chess tournaments, and they get a few moves in, and one of them just resigns, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, he had me, and you're just looking at it, it's like, you just started.
That's exactly what's going on when we play.
Or, they'll agree to a draw after, 31 turns, but that's different. Wandering Winter could probably speak to this, but there's this rumor, this meme about chess tournaments where at the high level players, they play so timid, and they just they don't want to lose, so they all draw a whole bunch of games and nothing happens. But then Magnus Carlsen comes in and just demolishes everyone and saves the day, and now everyone's like, oh, I have to win, and anyway, I like Magnus Carlsen. He's a very attractive man.
Sounds like it.
But he's also great at chess.
Wow.
Yeah.
You really can have it all. So.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good.
What
do you think?
Yeah, let us know in the comments who your favorite chess player is, and also what you would do on this board. But
do you want to count? Do you not want to count? Do you want Alchemist? Do you not want Alchemist? How do you open? Do you want the exploration in the open?
And how many stewards are you getting?
Leave a comment in the comment section if you're listening to this bad boy on YouTube. If not, or you don't feel like doing it, you can hop on over to adamhorton.com. From there, we have lots of links to our contact info. There's the blog and the forums there. You can shout at us. Or a link to the Discord server, where you can engage us in a more real-time friendly way. We talk about this kingdom, podcast, really anything you want.
Yep.
And we would certainly like to hear from you. If you have requests for episode topics that you would like us to cover, I don't know, count, tell us about it, and maybe we'll do it.
Not count. We just did count.
Yeah, but count.
Yeah,
kind of someone requested count.
Yeah.
And then we did it.
If you request count again,
Probably not gonna do it.
I don't know what to tell you. Yeah.
Count Quackula.
Count part 2. Let's get into all the nuances we didn't cover this episode.
Even with the edge cased. Oh man.
Yeah.
We could get really detailed. But yeah, I mean, any feedback related to that or just the podcast in general,
Yep.
we certainly would love to hear it. And we would love to hear from you, knowing that you're out there listening to the podcast and we're not just talking to ourselves in my basement.
Yeah, I usually am worried that I'm talking to myself in Adam's basement.
I mean, I'm here and we're kind of talking to each other, but like in front of us is a wall.
Yeah.
Right?
The fourth wall.
There's... yeah, actually...
Well, it's actually...
It's interesting.
Given that this is like...
An interesting metaphor.
Well, it's not a fourth wall, because like we acknowledge the audience to begin with, right?
Yeah, but
like
it kind of is, though, because like it is a wall and we're talking to it, but we're talking to the audience.
Yeah.
So it's like some really deep thing.
Yeah, let us know in the comments.
It's a little weird, though, if you just like don't know what a computer is and you just saw like the two of us talking to a wall with a desk in front of it when there's like a fish tank here with some fish in it and like other space, and if I didn't kick the dog out, she would be down here being really codependent.
You know what's really weird is that they're thinking about releasing another Borderlands 2 DLC.
Whoa.
That game is like, what, 8 years old now?
Ooh,
that
nice.
game, yeah, it's like crazy.
It's like,
and I think it's
whenever
like
they release a
confirmed
new
they're doing
Dominion expansion, and it's like, this game is 11 years old. Why did we need the 14th expansion? But we got Renaissance, and it was amazing.
Yeah, Renaissance was quite good.
It's just like that.
Yeah. I mean, Dominion ages like fine wine.
Like fine Mountain Dew.
Fine Mountain Dew.
Grape soda. Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, certain expansions.
Yeah. And some of them are, you know, other types of Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
That aren't as good.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for listening. We have this Mountain Dew Black Label.
So, what does this have in it?
It says Deeper, Darker Dew, registered trademark. MTN Dew, Black Label. Dew, registered trademark, with crafted dark berry flavor with other natural flavors.
Somehow I feel like I know less now that you've explained it. Like,
Low sodium.
Okay, now I definitely know less. I know what's not in it. So, this doesn't have alcohol in it.
That's for you, Jake.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think so.
I was confused by that, too, because I saw the crafted.
This can cost me 25 cents, so I'd be surprised if it had alcohol. This
That's
is from
true.
my wife.
It has a lovely
from
bouquet.
me. Yeah. I do want to waft
Did you
this.
hear about the Mountain Dew that like dissolved that mouse? Anyway,
I heard that was Coke.
that was Mountain Dew. I remember
Interesting.
because it was like a marketing study.
To making your own shuffle luck.
To doing that.
Yay.
And to
To the cat
motherhood,
who's
and
up
to
by
the
the
cat.
Hey, Coriander.
It's grape soda. Yeah.
It's grape soda, which is
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
it vastly exceeded my expectations. I
Yeah.
thought this would taste like Mountain Dew, and it doesn't, and that's good.
Yeah, I mean this is it's fine. Yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, this is fine.
Yeah.
This is fine. I'm pleased to report that this is fine.
Yeah.
To being fine.
It's a lot of worse things you could be.